Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Susan Valakis, and I'm the Training Development Coordinator at NOW, and as such, I bring you these webinars on the third Thursday of each month. If you've missed any of them, you can find replays on our website, nowfoods.com/webinars, or on our NOW YouTube channel. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the chat bubble on your screen to submit your questions, and we will respond to you with an answer by email. Now, you may or may not know that NOW brings about 50 new products to market every year, everything from cutting-edge new products to new sizes and new potencies, and all of this helps us to support our mission to empower healthier living. Today's presentation will be presented by one of NOW's very own, Jim Golick. Jim is a certified and licensed dietitian nutritionist in Illinois. He's been in the industry for over 40 years and has a long history with NOW Foods in retail management, nutrition counseling, as well as in our corporate environment. He's currently part of the product information team at NOW, where he answers questions and shares his vast knowledge with retailers, consumers, and practitioners from all around the world. So with that, please join me in welcoming Jim Golick for today's presentation. I also want to mention that this will run about 60 minutes today, but it is jam-packed with lots of great information on our extensive line of products, falling under the categories of the ABCs of vitamins. So welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Sue. Welcome, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about the extensive line of vitamins A, B, C, and D, and E, and K in our NOW Foods line. So quite a few things to talk about today. Now, one of the things I think that we want to address is why is there a need to take vitamins? Well, several reasons. One is that there are nutrients that we are expecting from our food, but given modern day agricultural practices, we cannot even rely upon our diet to provide the nutrients that our parents or grandparents may have had at one time. So it helps to take nutrients to help restore or replenish what our diet may not provide. For instance, studies of vegetables and fruit and wheat have revealed a decline in concentration of some from, let's say, 5 to 35%. And this is known as the dilution effect by Donald Davis, who's a biochemist at the University of Texas. So some of those declines ranged from 6% for protein to 20% for vitamin C and 38% for riboflavin. And there are certainly many more beyond that. There are also people that are on diets of various kinds. It could be a weight loss diet or a vegetarian vegan diet that have some potential deficiencies that we need to be aware of, like vitamin B12. Many people are on a ketogenic diet these days and could be deficient in certain vitamins. People are on low carb diets similarly. People with digestive issues like celiac disease can have malabsorption of nutrients. It can also apply to people with more inflammatory bowel disorders like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis as well. So we may need to get more nutrients beyond the 100% of the daily value in order to be assured of the absorption of the nutrients. And some people may do intermittent fasting and might be skipping a number of meals per week, and that means that you may need to get you may not be able to meet your nutrient requirements because of fewer meals to eat. So there are 13 essential vitamins needed for various functions. We're going to be talking about each one of these as well as some others. Vitamin A, vitamin B1 and B2 and B3, pantothenic acid, sometimes called vitamin B5, vitamin B6 and B7, better known as biotin, folate and folic acid, known as B9, and we have many B12 products that we'll get into, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K, of which there are several in those categories. We're going to start with vitamins A and D. So we're going to be discussing, first of all, vitamin A and beta carotene. So these are both fat-soluble compounds, and they're very important for the tissues that line our internal and external surfaces of the body. Basically, our skin and our intestinal tract are kind of continuous, if you think about it. So those are very important epithelial surfaces lining that vitamin A is involved in. So the eyes also are affected by vitamin A and beta carotene, and we need to understand that. Also respiratory tract and urinary tracts as well. So very important aspect in that regard. Now there are several forms of vitamin A. It can be known as retinol, that's the preformed vitamin A, or retinol palmitate, which is the form that's stored in the liver. Beta carotene, on the other hand, is found predominantly in algae species and in yellow and orange and dark green vegetables and fruits. Now, many of us know from way back when that yellow and orange fruits and vegetables tend to have beta carotene in them, but why dark green vegetables? Well, it's only because the chlorophyll in a dark green vegetable is more predominant, and it overwhelms the color aspects of the carotenoids that are in there underneath. And just like trees in the fall go from green to orange, well, that orange was already there, but the green photosynthesis that caused that was is in decline. So then the orange and colors like that tend to predominate. So beta carotene is a precursor to vitamin A. It may serve as either an antioxidant or it's converted to retinol, which is preformed vitamin A, in the body based on need. That's the important thing to understand about this is that vitamin A can be harmful in large amounts, while beta carotene is not. So it's really nearly impossible to overconsume beta carotene. One could drink a lot of carrot juice, for instance, and get orangish colored skin, but that's harmless and it would go away after you stop drinking lots of carrot juice, for instance. Now, the FDA labeling regulations require the listing of both forms, vitamin A and beta carotene, as vitamin A on a label. So sometimes people will see this on a label, vitamin A, and then in parentheses, we may put on our label 100% as beta carotene. And again, that's a sign that it's a safe form of vitamin A in case one has a concern. We also must list by the weight in micrograms, or mcg, and optionally by the international unit known as IU. So an example here would be 3,000 micrograms of a vitamin A would be equivalent to 10,000 IUs, which is the older designation, which we still use. Now, the RDAs for vitamin A are given as retinol activity equivalents, or RAE, that account for different bioactivities of retinol and provitamin A and carotenoids, which are converted by the body into retinol. So one retinol activity equivalent is equivalent to 1 microgram of retinol, and it would take 2 micrograms of supplemental beta carotene to be that equivalent, and 12 micrograms of dietary beta carotene to be equivalent, because we have less efficient absorption from foods versus supplemental forms that are more efficiently absorbed. One tip, by the way, is that cooked carrots, for instance, one can obtain more beta carotene from cooked carrots than they could from raw carrots. So there are differences in bioavailability that the RAE tries to take into consideration in the supplements and diet. But we do have a couple vitamin A products, more than a couple. We have vitamin A 10,000 and the 25,000. They come from a blend of retinol palmitate, which, as I mentioned before, is the storage form of vitamin A and with fish liver oil. So again, vitamin A does support eye and skin and immune health. We do have on our 25,000 IU label, do not use if you are pregnant, may become pregnant, or are breastfeeding, not intended for long-term use unless under medical supervision. So these are for women of childbearing age because vitamin A in amounts greater than 10,000 IUs can have a potential for producing birth defects in some cases in women and their fetuses. Now, beta carotene is next in line, and that is 7,500 micrograms and 25,000 IUs. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the label mentions it as vitamin A, even though it really isn't. But again, it's lumped together with a vitamin A category, and it's 100% is beta carotene. So beta carotene in this supplemental form is a precursor to vitamin A, and it provides antioxidant protection of vitamin A. It may serve as either an antioxidant or be converted to retinol or vitamin A in the body based on need. So again, if your body doesn't need the vitamin A, then the beta carotene won't convert into the vitamin A, which is why it's much safer to consider. Now, one thing to be aware of that as of earlier in the spring of 2024, there is a new source, Blockheslea trispora, which is a safe fungi that's used as a source of beta carotene. This replaces what we've had for years as a algae source, D. salina, that is no longer being used. Then we also have vitamin A and D combinations. We have a 10,400 A and D, which is again retinol palmitate with vitamin D3, so it can help with bones and teeth and eye health. That's the vitamin A portion that would help for that. And vitamin D, of course, helps with calcium absorption and transport to bones. And we'll be talking more about vitamin D separately later on. Now, interestingly, the Ultra A and D3 that I have listed here on the bottom of the page and over to the right is 60% of that is beta carotene and 40% from fish liver oil with 1,000 IUs of vitamin D3. So when one thinks in terms of, wow, that's a lot of vitamin A, well, most of that is beta carotene. So it is a fine source to consider in that regard, where you can get beta carotene, vitamin A, and fish and vitamin D all in one. So let's now turn to specifically vitamin D. It is like vitamin A, it's a fat-soluble vitamin, and does enhance the uptake of calcium from the diet, and it is critical for bone health, as I think most of us know. It supports a healthy immune system. Now, we can get it in our diet from oily fish, cod liver oil, egg yolks, fortified vitamin D, fortified milk, and cereals, and even certain mushrooms. Or obviously we can get it from going out in nice sunny weather and certain times of the year and getting our skin exposed to the UV sunlight. Now, the farther we are away from the equator, the higher the risk of vitamin D deficiency. And of course, as most of us in northern parts of the US and around the world know, winter months, it's much likelier that we're going to have a risk of deficiency unless we are supplementing or going someplace warm and sunny for the winter. So the two common forms of supplemental vitamin D is D2, or known as ergocalciferol, which is a vegetarian form derived from yeast. And it is considered physiologically equivalent to vitamin D3 when consumed daily in amounts of about 1,000 to 4,000 IUs. Now, the common form found in soft gels is the vitamin D3, cholecalciferol. It is a bioidentical form to the form that's produced when our skin is exposed to sunlight. And this is sourced from lanolin, which is has a cholesterol type compound that is then basically exposed to UV light, same as if sunlight was hitting one's skin and converting that cholesterol into vitamin D3. So that process can be done in a mass production way as well. So again, the potencies are listed in microgram and IUs. So 400 IUs would be 10 micrograms. 1,000 IUs, for instance, would be 25 micrograms. Vitamin D2 is, again, in a dry capsule form. It's a vegetarian form, as I mentioned earlier, and helpful to maintain optimal levels of vitamin D in the body. Because this is a dry capsule form and it's fat soluble, it should always be taken with meals that contain some fat. And of course, we know vitamin D helps with teeth and bones and immune health, and also muscle health as well. Vitamin D3 or cholecalciferol also again helps with calcium absorption and bone mineralization, muscle functions. It helps calcium and phosphorus regulation, as well as glucose metabolism and immune system regulation. So we have a number of potencies ranging from 400 IUs or 10 micrograms all the way up to 50,000 IUs or 1,250 micrograms. Now, the 50,000 IUs is something that should be used short-term use only, maybe once a week, which is one possible way to use it, or one might possibly use it for a few days, but it's not intended for long-term use at that level. That could be potentially harmful in that high level. The level of vitamin D that's considered safe and without known side effects is up to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. But to get into 50,000, that's where we want to be more cautious about the long-term use. We also have 2 liquid vitamin D3 products. Number 0370 is intended more for use for children. It is 100 IUs per drop or 400 IUs per 4 drops as listed on our label, and base of MCT oil and safflower oil. The extra strength is 1,000 IUs per drop. That's number 0371. Also on a base of MCT and safflower oil, but this is intended for adults, not for use in infants or children. That's just too much. So best when taken with a fat-containing meal. Next, let's turn our attention to B vitamins, which is quite a long category, an extensive category in our line. So start with an overview of B vitamins. They're needed by the body for energy production, for synthesis of blood cells, for a healthy nervous system, and countless other processes. B vitamins are water soluble, so they're readily excreted, and they're generally safe in large amounts, so very little concern about overdoing it with B vitamins. And many of the B vitamins work together. I like to think of them as playing a baseball game, where you have each of the players at their respective positions helping you to win the ball game. The first baseman does not do what the pitcher can do, nor the outfielder. So they all are baseball players, but they all have specialized roles, and that's kind of a good way, I think, to look at it. Now, some people may take a high potency B vitamin, a B50 or a B100, and if they don't take it with a full meal, they might have an upset stomach. So it helps to give people that advice if we're involved in that regard. So our B50, we have 2 options, B50 tablets and B50 veg caps. They provide all the B vitamins plus PABA, choline, and inositol, which are found in our food supply. They all, again, work to support healthy energy production and also maintain healthy homocysteine metabolism. We'll be talking about homocysteine a little bit later on, so I'm not going to go into the details here. They also promote the health of the nervous system. Also, because B vitamins are water soluble, except for B12, they have limited storage in the body, so daily replenishment is very important. The veg caps and the tablets are similar. The tablets contain more choline, inositol, and PABA compared to the capsules, which we kind of run out of space in the capsule that we can squeeze more into a tablet. We also have the B100 complex, 2 options there, the veg caps and the sustained release tablets. Same kind of formula for each, except that the sustained release tablets, we can put in more choline and inositol and PABA compared to the veg caps in that regard. Next, we have our coenzyme B complex, which supports nervous system health, as all B vitamins do. But this is a unique blend of both standard forms of B vitamins as well as the coenzyme forms, which are the active forms. So the body requires the conversion of the supplement of the B vitamins we find in foods and supplements into the active forms before they can actually be useful in the body as cofactors in biochemistry. So if we provide these ready to use forms, then the body does not have to make that conversion. So that makes it more efficient for the body in that regard, and that can be helpful. So I like this formula especially for several reasons. It is more biologically balanced than a B50 or a B100 formula, which is more numerically balanced with a few exceptions, 50 milligrams of the various Bs or the 100 milligrams of the various Bs. But the coenzyme B complex has greater amounts of niacin than the other B vitamins because it's found in a greater need for that amongst the B complex. Niacin is the most weight for weight, the most significant B vitamin that we need to be assured of compared to some of the others. And I also like the fact that this is a 2-capsule formula that allows for the flexibility. Do you take 2 capsules at once in the morning and be done with it? You could. However, it also is an option to consider, maybe one with breakfast and one with dinner, for instance, which may allow your bloodstream to have greater amounts of the B vitamins over a 24-hour period more regularly. And this formula also has a little vitamin C, alpha lipoic acid, and CoQ10 added to it, which makes it a very, very nice formula. Next, we're going to talk about the individual B vitamins. So we're going to start obviously with B1, or known as thiamine, can be spelled several different ways, which again is involved in energy production, healthy nerve tissue, and found in our diet in cereal grains, beans, nuts, eggs, and meats. Now, one of the things to understand about thiamine is that it also helps with the flow of electrolytes in and out of cells, but also carbohydrate metabolism. So people that overconsume sugar and alcohol, it can be more likely to deplete their body of thiamine if they're not obtaining it adequately from their diet. So it makes supplementation that much more important. And thiamine is also involved in the production of hydrochloric acid, which we need for digestion. Next, we have riboflavin, or B2. That's found in green veggies and liver and kidneys, if you eat those, wheat germ, and milk, eggs, cheese, and fish. So it's involved in carbohydrate, fat, and protein energy production from those compounds, and needed for glutathione regeneration, which is very important self-produced antioxidant compound made in our body that supports our immune defense and detoxification systems. It's also helpful for the eyes as well. We have several niacin options. Here are 2 in the 500 milligram niacin category. Niacin is also known as vitamin B3, also known as nicotinic acid, which has recently been added to our labels. Food sources include meats like beef and pork and poultry and fish, and spaghetti sauce, peanuts, and rice. It's also very much involved in energy production and a lot of metabolic processes in the body. We have the 500 milligram capsules that are immediate release, and then we also have the sustained release tablets designed to minimize flushing versus the capsules, which will most assuredly produce a niacin flush in people, which is a itchy red rash that can occur and can last for a number of minutes, and it can be alarming to people that are not prepared for it, not aware of it. But we do have on our labels the caution about that, but it is a harmless reaction. So if you want to learn more about it, you can also go to our nowfoods.com and look at the niacin side effects for more information. Now, another way to address the niacin flush aspect is our flush-free niacin, which contains a molecule of inositol added to 6 molecules of niacin that allows it to be slowly broken down and minimize the flush potential. So that is comes in 2 strengths, a 250 milligram and the double strength 500 milligram. Now we have another vitamin B3 option, niacinamide. Now, niacinamide and niacin are 2 different forms of vitamin B3. Niacin can be converted by the body into niacinamide, but that's a one-way street. Niacinamide does not convert into niacin. Niacinamide also does not cause the flush that is associated with high doses of niacin. However, niacinamide also has no impact on cholesterol synthesis. Now, the nice thing about niacinamide is that it's converted into the bioactive forms. We're going to talk about that in a moment. NAD and its cousins, NADH, NADP, and NADPH, which are very much involved in many processes of energy production, DNA stability, and other factors, other functions as well. So NADH is also known as nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is why we call it NADH. So it's a complex molecule comprised of the vitamin B3 along with a sugar made in the body called ribose and a phosphorus group, a phosphate group, and another compound called adenine. So this is the active form of what vitamin B3 or niacinamide gets converted into. So there are some different kinds of these compounds. NAD is the oxidized form that accepts hydrogen, while NADH is a reduced form that donates hydrogen. Now, these compounds are related in pairs. They are converted back and forth, all the way many thousands of times, if not hundreds of thousands of times during the body's energy production cycles in the course of the day. So as one gets spent, it gets recycled and the process continues. It's all very much important part of the important biochemistry of our body. So there are hundreds of biochemical reactions that use NADH, and it is a definite component in ATP production, which is especially important for energy in the body. So also NADH is involved in synthesis of neurotransmitters in the brain, which is very important. Now we use a trademark brand, Pan-Mol NADH, which has been preserved and stable through a proprietary process that makes it bioavailable to the body. And to that formula, we've also added D-ribose. Why is that? D-ribose, as I mentioned earlier, is an important part of the NADH compound. Now, there are some brands that sell the NR or nicotinamide riboside, which is basically the similar compound that we have, and MNM or nicotinamide mononucleotide that are all derived from vitamin B3. However, those other brands have these compounds are precursors to NAD and NADH. So that requires some additional conversion, but our NADH is stable and bioavailable NADH ready to go to work in the body. Next, we have pantothenic acid, known as vitamin B5, also involved in many cell functions and cell metabolism. found in most plant and animal foods. The best sources are beef, chicken, organ meats, and some vegetables. And it's found in nearly every living cell as an important component of a compound known as coenzyme A, which is kind of at the intersection of the generation of energy from our food, from the fat and carbohydrate and protein in our diet. So very much involved in that, as well as for the production of fats and cholesterol and red blood cells, as well as neurotransmitters, and especially adrenal hormone secretions. So many people think of getting a stress formula. They may find that pantothenic acid is in greater amounts in a stress formula because it does help with the adrenal hormone secretions in a major way. Next, we have a biologically active metabolite of pantothenic acid known as panthothene that's involved in formation of coenzyme A. That's also involved in metabolism, again, of the energy in our diet from fats, carbohydrates, and protein. Now, pantothene also has the important ability to help serum lipids in a healthy range and support proper cholesterol production and fat storage in the liver, which actually could be helpful in promotion of healthy body fat distribution. And also can help with the healthy cardiovascular system. Now, pantothene is not considered an essential vitamin, so it does not have a daily value. And it is available in 300 milligram and 600 milligram soft gel potencies. Next, we have vitamin B6, known as pyridoxine. So also involved in the nervous system, as all B vitamins are. And again, there are numerous reactions that are involved, that B6 is involved in, and especially in healthy homocysteine metabolism. Homocysteine is a product of the amino acid methionine, which comes from protein in our diet, and it can be improperly metabolized, and it can lead to a buildup that can be destructive to our vascular structures in our blood vessels as well. So vitamin B6 is part of a complex of other vitamins, which we'll get into in a moment, that actually help the recycling of homocysteine into a friendlier form. And it also is very much involved in conversion of amino acids into another, including neurotransmitters as needed, as well as for healthy production of red blood cells and hemoglobin. So food sources include fish, especially tuna fish, beef, chicken, tofu, pork, potatoes, avocados, bananas, oatmeal, chickpeas, and pistachios. Now, here's another form of B6 called P5P, or pyridoxal 5-phosphate. So this is the coenzyme form of B6. Again, it's ready to go to work in the body, no conversion needed, so it's more bioavailable in the body. And we also add magnesium bisglycinate to this because magnesium and P5P are involved in several hundred biochemical reactions in the body. So very helpful to have them both together, supporting the body's many needs. Next, we're going to get into our B12 category, which is rather extensive. B12 is essential for energy production, and we're going to get into more details about that. Also for a healthy nervous system and the synthesis of DNA during cell division, along with folic acid, is important in the rapidly dividing cells. We make many millions of red blood cells in the course of a day, and folic acid and B12 are intimately involved in that process. So I mentioned earlier that B6 is involved in the conversion of homocysteine from homocysteine back into methionine. It also utilizes B12 and folic acid in that process, which is helpful in support of cardiovascular health. Now, some B12 is stored in the liver, but dietary sources largely come from meat and dairy, foods of animal origin. There are certain foods, such as certain mushrooms and nori, which is a type of a seaweed or sea algae, are plant sources where one can get B12 if one is a vegetarian. But for people that are strict vegetarians, it may be especially important to have adequate B12 and get it from supplements. And B12 supplements are vegetarian and vegan. Now, there are three main forms of B12, cyanocobalamin, which is the most common. It's a precursor for both of the active forms of B12 in the body, methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin. So the methylcobalamin is the form that exists inside of cells, involved in nerve stability and homocysteine detoxification. The adenosylcobalamin is preferentially taken up by the mitochondria, which are the energy production sites in our cells. Adenosylcobalamin is also known as dibencoxide. That's typically how we have it listed on our labels if it is included. The adenosylcobalamin form is the majority, about 2/3 of our body stores of B12 are in that non-methylated form. Now, we sell very high potencies of B12. Why such high doses? Well, the daily value is only 2.4 micrograms, which is about the amount of B12 that one can absorb via active transport mechanisms in the body. But you can also get about 1% of B12 absorbed via passive diffusion. So large supplemental amounts may be needed to provide enough to reach higher blood levels. And interestingly, clinical trials have shown that taking 1,000 micrograms or more of B12 in supplements is as effective as getting an intramuscular injection that some people may require, or may find if they talk to their doctor that they can use this as an alternative if the doctor approves. Now, some people are concerned that vitamin B12 contains cyanide, which it does. That's the cyanocobalamin, the cyano portion of cyanocobalamin. However, cyanocobalamin is safe. It is so safe that the Institute of Medicine has never established a upper level of safety, because vitamin B12 has a very low potential for toxicity. And to quote them, no adverse effects have been associated with excess vitamin B12 intake from food and supplements in healthy individuals. Now, we have methyl B12, which again is a coenzyme form involved in energy production. It's also necessary for its critical role in DNA synthesis as well as in homocysteine metabolism. Again, B12 supplements may be especially important for strict vegetarians, and all the now methyl B12 supplements are also vegetarian and vegan. We have B12 lozenges, the cyanocobalamin in 1,000 and 5,000. We have the 2,000 that has not only cyanocobalamin, but also the dibencoxide and the methylcobalamin forms, the three forms of B12 in that. Some of the B12, like the 1,000 and the 5,000, have additional folic acid since they work so closely together in much of the biochemistry of the body. Then we also have three methyl B12 lozenges, the 1,000 and the 5,000 and the 10,000. Only the 5,000 has folic acid added, which is 400 micrograms. And you can also go to nowfoods.com and look at our Why Take Vitamin B12 infographic for more information in that regard. In addition, we also have liquid vitamin B12 that includes the B complex. So we have the B12 liquid, which gets you 1,000 micrograms of B12 in a 1/4 teaspoon serving. We also have our very good selling Ultra B12, which gets 5,000 micrograms of B12 in a teaspoon serving, along with all three forms of B12. You can also get the B12 Energy Boost shots, which are 12 vials in a box that are quite tasty. And matter of fact, the Ultra B12 is tasty as well, as is the liquid B12. So, but the B12 1,000 shots is a very large amount of B12 that can be helpful for people who have a need for it in that regard. And we also have, for those that don't want a liquid option, we have instant energy B12 packets that has all three forms of B12, including the dibencoxide and the methylcobalamin. And there's a greater percentage of the methylcobalamin and the dibencoxide in this formula than there are on our other B12 containing products, other than separate methylcobalamin. In addition, we also have a few B vitamins added, the thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, B6, and the folate, and pantothenic acid, along with chromium and creatine that are involved in energy metabolism in the body as well. So you can just take this straight in your mouth, or you can add it to water or juice or whatever beverage you desire. Next, we have biotin, which is a popular supplement, and it's involved in normal growth and function, also involved in the healthy immune system and in skin health. Now, biotin also plays a role in gluconeogenesis, which is a tongue twister of a term many people are not familiar with. That's the production of glucose from compounds in the body, such as amino acids. Fatty acid synthesis as well, and biotin is in the metabolism of some amino acids. Now, besides that role in energy production, biotin also enhances the synthesis of certain proteins, such as keratin. Keratin is a protein involved in hair and nails, for instance. Food sources include meats, fish, eggs, seeds, nuts, and some vegetables. And we have potencies 1,000, 5,000, and 10,000 microgram. Next, we have choline and inositol. Choline and inositol are not considered officially B vitamins because our body can make some amounts of these, but they are associated with B vitamins and are involved in as components of cell membranes. So because of that, they are very much involved in healthy nerve transmission. And choline is a necessary nutrient, even though it's not considered a B vitamin, but it does have a daily value. So it's very much involved in brain health and fatty acid metabolism. Inositol is also essential for brain and nervous system health as well, although not considered a necessary nutrient because our body can make some amounts of it, although it may not make enough. So food sources include eggs, salmon, chicken, and chicken liver, beef, milk, lecithin, shiitake mushrooms, wheat germ, Brussels sprouts, legumes, and whole grains. Next, we have a compound known as DMG, or N-dimethylglycine, also known as pangamic acid. Once upon a time, many years ago, when I was very young and learning about nutrition, this was, or form of this was referred to as vitamin B15, which it was never officially designated that way, so that is not really a technically correct term for it, so you don't see that these days. But it is a derivative of glycine, an amino acid, and found in our diet and foods such as beans and brown rice and pumpkin seeds. But DMG is an important methyl donor that's involved in many different biochemical pathways and important for glutathione synthesis. And one of its nice benefits is that it helps promote cellular oxygen utilization and the production of cells involved in the immune response. A similar cousin is trimethylglycine, known as betaine or TMG. That is a helpful compound for supporting healthy homocysteine levels and promoting normal methylation processes. Methylation is a very important aspect of not only DNA repair, but also liver detoxification, lipid metabolism, and the production of S-adenosylmethionine, known as SAMe, which is involved in many aspects of our body chemistry, joint health, and in neurotransmitter support. So DMG is also helps in the conversion of homocysteine, converted back into methionine, which is a friendlier amino acid form that the body can make use of. So supplementation with TMG can help support a healthy homocysteine level if it's already within the normal range. Next up, we have folic acid, also involved in healthy homocysteine metabolism, as we talked about a bit earlier. So, along with vitamin B12, is essential for rapidly dividing cells, such as red blood cells, and also involved in the homocysteine regulation, as we mentioned. And interesting thing about folic acid, it's the only form of folate with an improved claim for prevention of neural tube defects in pregnancy. And folic acid has greater bioavailability compared to folate found in foods. So we find folate, for instance, in dark green leafy vegetables and Brussels sprouts and broccoli and beans and peanuts, sunflower seeds, fruits and whole grains, liver and eggs. So we can get it from our diet, but we can get more efficient absorption utilization of folic acid directly if we need to. This particular folic acid that we have is 800 microgram that has a small amount of B12 added to it. Another form of folate is methylfolate, and then we have two options. So we have a patented brand called Quadrafolic, which is metabolically active folate that has been shown to have superior bioavailability compared to that of folate from the diet. So this is involved again in cell division and synthesis of neurotransmitters and DNA. So it can penetrate the blood-brain barrier more easily than regular folic acid. So it can help to support neurological health. We have it available in 1,000 microgram tablets and 5,000 microgram veg caps. Next, we have para-aminobenzoic acid, known as PABA for short. It's really not considered part of the B vitamin family, nor is it an essential nutrient. It is a precursor to folic acid and may be used in our gut by bacteria to produce folic acid. So PABA is found in foods such as grains, eggs, milk, and meat. Next, we're going to talk about vitamin C and bioflavonoids. Vitamin C is also known as L-ascorbic acid. That is the natural form as found in nature. And humans, again, do not synthesize it, and so we need to get it from our diet, or if our diet does not provide, from a supplement. So it is water soluble like the B vitamins. It is an effective antioxidant to neutralize free radicals in the body, involved in immune health. It's also involved in skin and bone and joint health, and very essential for production of collagen. So it's needed in amino acid metabolism, neurotransmitter synthesis, and utilization of nutrients such as folic acid and iron. So we can get it from foods such as citrus fruits, which we all know about, strawberries and bell peppers, broccoli, white potatoes. Now we have a number of vitamin C powders. We have the vitamin C crystals, which actually is a powder. It's basically pure L-ascorbic acid. That's it. We have several buffered forms because vitamin C can be more on the acidic side. Sometimes people might be bothered by it and they don't tolerate it as well. So we can have calcium added to it, making it calcium ascorbate. We can add magnesium, make it magnesium ascorbate. We can add sodium, make it sodium ascorbate. There is two transport molecules for ascorbate into the cells in the body that require sodium. So sodium ascorbate is typically the kind that doctors may use in an IV form with patients, for instance. So sodium ascorbate, we're not selling this as something that to put in an IV, but sodium ascorbate is, again, popular, as is the calcium ascorbate, more so, as well as the vitamin C crystals, probably more so than the magnesium ascorbate. Now, you can get quite a bit of vitamin C regardless of these in a quarter of a teaspoon to a half a teaspoon dose. That varies depending on the product in that regard. So next up, we have vitamin C 500 formulas. We have tablets, capsules. The capsules are buffered with calcium ascorbate and have citrus bioflavonoid complex in them. We also have the chewables that contain the combination of sodium ascorbate and ascorbic acid, and acerola, which is a tropical berry that's a natural source of vitamin C, and citrus bioflavonoid complex. We also have ascorbyl palmitate, which is soluble in both water and lipid portions of our cells and tends to penetrate the blood-brain barrier more easily, so that could be of help for certain people that are needed in that regard. We also have C1000 formulas, tablet and capsules. We do have the C1000 capsules that have added bioflavonoids and rutin, and we have the standard C1000 tablets that also include bioflavonoids as well as rosehip's powder. Then we have a sustained release C1000 that includes rosehip powder. Then we have the kitchen sink, the C1000 buffered tablets that include a buffered form, calcium ascorbate, bioflavonoids, acerola extract, and rutin. Also tends to be a little on the larger side, maybe a tad larger than the other vitamin C tablet formulas because we fit so much into that. Next, we have some specialized vitamin C products, including the C-Zinc Immune, which contains 15 milligrams of zinc and glycinate, which we'll talk about in a moment. Then we have the C1000 zinc and with vitamin D3, 2000 IUs. So this combination is very helpful for the body's immune response to environmental challenges, especially during the winter months. So both of these formulas contain the Albion zinc bisglycinate, which has been shown to have superior bioavailability compared to other forms of supplemental zinc, and it's also gentler on the stomach compared to some other forms. So Albion has been for over 50 years the world's leading mineral chelating company that finds ways with research to develop excellent, well-absorbed mineral compounds that mimic nature. Next up, we have another C500 product called AlphaZorb C that contains threonic acid, which is a vitamin C metabolite that helps to enhance the uptake of vitamin C, especially by immune cells, along with alpha lipoic acid, that is a compound formed in our body that's a free radical scavenger that helps regenerate vitamin C in the body, and also may enhance its uptake in the body as well. Also does contain other compounds like bioflavonoids as well. Next, we have something that's relatively new in our line the last few years, liposomal vitamin C. It's a trademark brand called Pure Whey C. It is a fat-soluble vitamin C that utilizes phospholipids. What are phospholipids? Well, they comprise our cell membranes, which are semi-permeable. They help to keep things out and help to allow entry of some compounds in. So phospholipid-bound compounds like this vitamin C are more readily allowed into cells, and because of that, it's been shown to have enhanced absorption, uptake, and retention in the body compared to other forms of vitamin C, which is an important distinction in that regard. And it's part of the bioflavonoid and rutin part of vitamin C family. Citrus bioflavonoids are found in nature. For instance, if you eat an orange, you get vitamin C, as well as the white part of an orange, you'll get the bioflavonoids. And hesperidin is the primary form found in the bioflavonoid complex. Bioflavonoids have an effect on strengthening capillary permeability, and that can support healthy blood flow. So it works synergistically with vitamin C. Another compound, bioflavonoid, that's related to quercetin and hesperidin is rutin, which also helps support vascular function and promotes healthy circulation. Next, we're going to turn our attention to vitamin E family. Now, vitamin E, also known as tocopherols, are a number of compounds. They're fat soluble, as is vitamin A and vitamin D, as we talked about earlier, and are involved in blood clotting and immune and neurological functions, and helping as part of the normal aging process. Now, there are 4 types of tocopherols, known as D-alpha, beta, delta, and gamma. But a couple things important to know is alpha tocopherol is the most common and most biologically active form of vitamin E in the body, although gamma tocopherol is the most prevalent form of vitamin E in our diet, but not in the body itself. Why? Because alpha tocopherol is enhanced by its absorption with a tocopherol transfer protein, special compound that actually preferentially picks up the alpha tocopherol form and helps to chaperone it into the body compared to gamma tocopherol. Now, all the tocopherols are found in nature. Our body, in its wisdom, knows what to do with them. And gamma tocopherol does have some potential benefits, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But there's also four first cousins to the tocopherol family, and that's the tocotrienol forms. Now, they are almost identical in structure to tocopherols, and they do have additional free radical fighting properties, but they have no daily value, and neither does gamma tocopherol. So only alpha tocopherol has the daily value associated with that in terms of percentage of the daily value. Now, we can contrast this with some of the forms that you might find in drugstore brands, for instance, of multivitamins or vitamin E, that might use synthetic D-L alpha tocopherol compared to the natural D-alpha form. So one way to think of this is D stands for the Latin word dextro, which means right, and the D-L stands for dextro-levo, or levo being left. So when viewed through sophisticated scientific instruments, you can see that vitamin E could either bend to the right or bend to the left. The synthetic form is like wearing a left-handed glove on a right-handed person. It doesn't quite fit. The body can make some use of it, but not ideal use of it. So the natural D-alpha form is actually preferentially absorbed and retained in the body compared to the DL form. Food sources include vegetable oils of various kinds: wheat germs, soy, sunflower, safflower, olive, etc. Nuts and seeds and avocados, fatty fish, bell peppers, and mangoes. Now, advanced gamma E is a full spectrum vitamin E. We just talked about the tocopherol and the tocotrienol family. All 8 of those members are represented in this formula. And this does emphasize a good amount of gamma tocopherol, which is not, again, found in great abundance in the bloodstream, but it does have the ability to detoxify reactive nitrogen species, which is a particularly destructive form of free radical that D-alpha tocopherol is not able to do. So they work together in a good partnership in that regard. So, and vitamin E partnership also helps in the maintenance of cardiovascular health and normal immune system function as well. Now we're going to talk about some of the separate vitamin E products. For instance, we have the E200 and the E400. Those are contain the D-alpha tocopherol vitamin E that are involved again in immune and vascular functions in the body. We also have E400 that contains not only the D-alpha tocopherol, but also mixed tocopherols with an added amount of 100 micrograms of selenium, which is the trace mineral that helps as a complement to vitamin E. They work in partnership in the body to help each other with their free radical fighting properties in that regard. Dry E400 is a form that is a stable, along with acetate forms of vitamin E, if you see that on the label, stable supplemental forms. It's a vegetarian dry form for people that are looking for that option. Now we also have vitamin E with mixed tocopherols. That is a 200 IU, the 400 IU, and the E1000 that are represented here. And we also have the Sun E400 derived from sunflower seed oil. Now the other vitamin E's that we've covered come largely from soybean oil, which is a rich source of vitamin E. But some people, for various reasons, do not want to have a soy-based vitamin E. This provides an option for them to consider, and since it comes from sunflower seed oil. However, the sunflower seed oil is not a good source of other tocopherols, so you're not going to find the beta, delta, and gamma representation in this form. It's just the D-alpha tocopherol represented here. We also have liquid forms of vitamin E. We have the regular D-alpha tocopherol liquid in a base of organic extra virgin olive oil. You can get 90 IUs in a 6-drop serving. Then we also have the vitamin E oil. It's a double strength where you can get 253 IUs. I've been talking about E in terms of international units for 40 plus years, so it's still new for me to discuss the milligram portions, but if you were to do the math here, 170 milligrams of vitamin E multiplied by 1.5 will get you about 253 IUs. So that's how you can do the conversion if you don't know. Just to multiply the milligram of vitamin E by 1.5 and you'll have the international unit when it comes to the D-alpha tocopherol portion. This is also, by the way, in a base of organic extra virgin olive oil. Then we also have the vitamin E oil with mixed tocopherols. This is again 87 IUs per serving and a quarter teaspoon, also on a base of organic extra virgin olive oil. One of the nice things about this is this particular form is especially helpful, and you can add to vegetable oils to help maintain the freshness of the oil. Probably don't need much, quarter teaspoon, half a teaspoon, something like that in a bottle of vegetable oil should be helpful and sufficient. Next, we're going to talk about vitamin K. Vitamin K is also fat soluble, and its biologically active forms are K1, known as phyloquinone, and vitamin K2 as menaquinone. Now, we all think, we know K1, we think of helping in blood clots. We find that in dark green leafy vegetables and broccoli. And what is becoming even more popular in the last 10 years or so has been vitamin K2, which helps in calcium metabolism because it activates a certain compound in the body called osteocalcium that actually helps in the transport of calcium into the mineral structure of the bones, and is also involved in cardiovascular system by inhibiting calcium deposition in the arteries, which is especially helpful. Now, our food sources of vitamin K are different from those of K1. Those sources would include the Japanese soybean curd called natto, which again is not popular in the Western diet, but found more commonly in certain cheeses and egg yolks and fermented foods that are part of our Western diet. Now, vitamin K2 has a number of subforms, MK4 through MK13. Now, the most common form, if you don't see it listed on a supplement label, would be the MK4 form. But the most active and best absorbed form is actually MK7 that has a longer chain length and can last for several days in the body. And only K1 has an established daily value for its recognized role in blood clotting. These other roles of vitamin K2 are not currently recognized for a daily value component. So you may see them listed on some supplement labels like a multivitamin listed separately at the end of the label. So as I mentioned, MK4 form of vitamin K2 we do sell at a microgram amount and is involved in arterial health and calcium metabolism. Then we also have the MK7 that we have in two potencies, again fermented using chickpea protein. So again, the traditional source of MK7 has been the Japanese soybean curd called natto. MK7 can be derived from soybean curd and natto. Ours is not. Ours comes from chickpea protein, so it is free of soy allergens and also free of gluten allergens as well. The nice thing about the MenQ7 form of this that we use exclusively in our products is that there have been over 22 studies showing it to support bone and cardiovascular health. So we like to use well-researched forms whenever we can. So it does come in 100 microgram and 300 microgram extra strength potencies, and is vegan and vegetarian. We also have MK7 Plus, which we came out with in the past year or so, that contains vitamins K1 and K2, and both forms of vitamin K2, which is MK4 and MK7. Now, the formula is at the bottom of the page there, 120 micrograms of K1, 360 of MK4, 90 micrograms of MK7, and a base of 135 milligrams of alfalfa powder, non-GMO alfalfa powder. Why alfalfa powder? Well, alfalfa powder is a natural food form of vitamin K1. So that's why we include it. So we also have several vitamin D3 and K2 combos. We have a liquid form, which is in a 5-drop serving, 2,500 IUs of vitamin D3 and 100 micrograms of MK7 form of K2. We also have a vitamin D3 1000 with 45 micrograms of regular K2 or the MK4 form. So again, vitamin D and vitamin K are both involved in bone mineralization from the pickup stage to the deposition stage, so to speak, and helping to keep it out of the arteries to the extent possible so that it goes to the bone where we want it to go. Now we also have Mega D3 and MK7, where you can get very good amounts, 5,000 IUs of D3 and 180 micrograms of MK7 in a combination capsule. Again, it is a dry powder material inside of a capsule. When taken with a fat-containing meal, it would be well absorbed. So there we have it, the ABCs of vitamins. And I'll turn it over now to you, Sue.
All right, good information, lots of information. Can you hear me okay, Jim?
Yes, and I've just checked my watch. It looks like we probably went about an hour, so it went longer than I thought.
We did, but that's okay. It was good information. And just to remind everybody, you'll get a copy of this about an hour after we finish today. So in case you want to review it again or some of the certain sections of it, you will have that information.
Oh, by the way, I do want to make a mention of some slides are courtesy of Dawn Daler, our pharmacist, and Kyle Russ, which I neglected to say earlier. Apologize for that.
Okay. You know, when you started and you were talking about beta carotene, I remember years ago I used to juice carrots. I was reading about, you know, the benefits of juicing carrots, and I used to go to the grocery store and I'd buy literally 25-pound bag of carrots.
Yes.
And you know, people would say, "Oh, you got horses?" And I said, "No, it's for me," you know. But I was visiting, I think it was North Carolina one time, and I was following a website and a guy that wrote a book on the benefits of juicing carrots. And I knew that his farm was somewhere out in North Carolina. So I told my husband, I'm like, "Oh, we got to go. I got to see this place," you know, because I was like really into it. And not knowing if I would run into him or not. But lo and behold, I ran into him in his store and he was orange. His skin was orange.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it because I'm like, okay, yep, you're walking the walk, you know.
Did you say he had horses?
He did not. No, people would ask me when I would go to the grocery store and buy 25-pound bags of carrots.
Yeah, they asked you horses. Okay.
So, yeah. But I'll tell you what, when I was doing that, I felt really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, it can be helpful.
Yeah. So why, you ask, am I still not doing it? Well, as life goes.
Yeah. Well, things change, we change, our diet change, supplement programs change. Yeah. Change is inevitable.
Yep. And again, you'll receive a copy of this in your inbox, so watch for that. And if you do have any questions, I'm sure you could always reach out to Jim, and he will be happy to answer your questions because that's what you do most of the day, don't you, Jim?
That's what I do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we're going to go ahead and call this a wrap. Thank you for hanging in there, everybody, but certainly worth the time. So have a great day. And thank you, Jim, once again for an excellent presentation.
You're welcome. Thanks for helping, Sue.
All right.
Bye-bye all.
Take care, everybody.